Throwdown Nation. We are live. Better late than never. We
Yeah.
are we are streaming tonight on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. All systems
Gang,
are
gang.
go.
Arr.
And tonight it is my distinct pleasure to have with me money making Che Guzman. How you
Gang,
doing
gang.
tonight, sir?
What's up, man? I'm chilling, man. You already know I'm out here in New York taking care of business and shit, but don't need to know about the business. You don't want to expose the business. You know what
Yeah, you got to protect the business.
I mean? Yeah, man. We doing good over here, though, man. It's colder, man. I travel a lot, but New York, man, you got to pack for this time of the year. It's not like the
No
South.
doubt. No doubt. Are you in the are you in the city or are you
Yeah.
elsewhere in the state?
Yeah, I'm out in the city right now, but whenever I wrestle for ALW, most of the shows are down south in Florida. So it's just a
Gotcha.
big difference, Down there it's
Oh yeah,
shorts and up here you need some shin protection.
absolutely, absolutely. So one thing I'll tell everybody that's watching, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. And at the end, we'll do a quick little viewer Q&A session, and all questions and comments will be read and answered at the end. But
Gang, gang.
we're going to go ahead and get started with the first and most obvious question, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
Oh my God. Well, professionally, I mean, I've been wrestling my whole life since a little kid, you know what I mean? But
Right. Yeah.
I'll say like I got into the business. Whew, man, I'm getting old, right? Isn't that some funny shit, right? You start thinking, right?
Aren't we all?
It's one of those questions you start thinking, like, man, how long have I been doing this? Well, I was on and off. Like when I was 20, I'm 35, right? So when I was
Hmm.
21, I had this girlfriend of mine who like convinced me to wrestle because we used to go on dates and go to the library because we were ghetto as hell. We used to rent the wrestling shows and we used to watch them. And she was like, why don't you just do it? You're always renting these videos. So I ended up doing it, but I got caught up in the street because, that's things happen. Rent got to get paid. So I left it. So like I did wrestling for like, I would say like a month, and in that like 2 months, it's like 2 or 3 months I did it when I was 21. And it's interesting because I met Angel Ortiz, who was in the inner circle, and that was funny because we were just, you just wouldn't think like the person you're training with is gonna blow up and then do some amazing things, you know what I mean? So I
Right.
thought that was such an interesting thing during that one short, distinct run I had at 21 for like 3 months. And then, like, I got into a world of trouble. And at 25, I straightened up. I was doing a lot of boxing and stuff. And then I went to a show, and Nunzio from the FBI, you remember him from
Oh
ECW?
yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
Italians. I was
Yeah.
in really good shape from boxing, and I was thinking about becoming pro because I was training and doing all these like matches and stuff for amateurs, and just going to the show during intermission. I was shaking hands, and he looked at me. He goes, "You wrestle?" And I was just like, I look like a wrestler. Like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? So after that, I went home and I started thinking about it. I was like, I should try this wrestling stuff out. So I did that for like maybe like 6 months, and then bad things happen again, and I leave wrestling for the wrong reasons. But a big triumph happens when I hit like 28, 29, and I got it together, and me and my friend did this New Japan camp. So when we did the New Japan camp, I wasn't expecting to even get selected for that. So we did the New Japan camp. We ended up going to California, and then
Hmm.
we did that for like a week. We were like the first camp when they came back to America, because previously, the last time they were there was when John Cena and Samoa Joe and the Daniel Bryan stories of that old camp. That all
Right.
the wrestling fans know about, who were really into the pages. But
Hmm.
that after that, my friend, I had a really good friend named Alex Coughlin, and
Oh
he
yeah.
ended up getting signed. And I was so proud of him. Shout out to my boy, man. He's one of the best out there. And just seeing him get signed to New Japan lit a fire under my butt because I had to take that flight home by myself. We flew there together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, I'm not just going to leave again and do what I've always done. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the same pattern. I was like, he got picked. And I was like, he thought I was good enough to do this. So that's when I went online and I found Dory Funk Jr. And that's when I
Oh
went
yeah.
there. And from Dory Funk Jr., I would say for the past 5 years, 5, 6 years, I've been training. I've been doing professional wrestling. But for the first 2 years, I wasn't allowed to even, no one was giving me an opportunity. I wasn't getting no mad. You know what I mean? It was like such a pay your dues atmosphere. You know what I
Right.
mean? But when I got that break, I got fortunate to do it for, I would say, professionally straight for like 4 years now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So you've mostly trained under Dory, or how has that
Yeah.
been?
So, well, when I was 21, I'll break it all quickly. Like when I did the 21 thing, I was with this gentleman named Brian Idle, who had this funny gimmick named Earl Cooter, which is all
Okay.
you gotta look into it yourself, bro. It's so funny, and he gave me a break. You know what I mean? But I was like a troubled youth. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he did give me a break. So I will say that was like my first time in the ring, taking
Mm-hmm.
bumps, and I was just so excited. It was everything I did in my bed or in my backyard with my friends. You
Right.
know, but then I was at NYWC for a time. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you ever heard of NY, as a New York Wrestling Connection in Long Island, New York.
Okay.
I was over there with them for a little while, and we had people like Tony Nese and Mondo over there.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of ECW originals would stop in and out and help out. Um, but after that, like I got my real training from Dory Funk for the first year, and
Gotcha.
then after Dory Funk, I somehow went to a seminar for Robbie Brookside and Marty Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and I met the camp for Evolve because they were hosting it, and they seen my match and they seen what I did, and they were impressed enough to offer me, like opportunities to, you know, just be part of the group. Like I wasn't gonna get on the show just yet, but I got to because I was living so far and I just moved from New York. So being so far up north where Dory was in the middle versus so out by Clearwater where like Evolve was, it was kind of like, well, I don't have a place. So rest in peace to this guy named Frankie Chiatsu, who he also had a little part in training me for a stint with Evolve. He's the one who introduced me to the owner and got me my first apartment. And I was like, "You're telling me like the owner of Evolve will let me live at his townhouse if I could, I was like, oh, fuck, let's go." I literally moved out. Like my roommates were like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going out. I'll be back." And like at nighttime, I packed all my stuff and dipped. And like I called them like, "Listen, this is a big opportunity. That's luego, guys. But I traveled with Evolve for a while, and I learned a lot from them. So I could say like AR Fox trained me. That's where I met AR
Oh yeah.
Fox. The whole WWN Evolve camp. I was with them for 2 years. COVID hit, and also
Yeah.
Matt Seidel and Chris Silvio. Shout out to them. They
Oh
helped
yeah.
me out a lot. But then when the COVID hit, it was kind of rugged. And I remember WXW. That's a big chapter in my life. Is when I met Alpha, and Alpha took a liking to me, which is was very shocking because he's so respected.
Right.
And I did a drill, which is like damn near impossible for anyone. It's called the Samoa drill, the Wild Samoan drill, which is the hardest drill ever. And I didn't know he was gonna have drills. I just wanted to come and help and watch the show. And I did the drill, and I did it in jeans, long pants, and everything, bro. And he was just, the rest was history. I became part of the family, and fortunately, he's in heaven right now. But
Yep.
he was such a big influence on me, and it's a long question because it's a long answer because like I've been trained by so many great people. Like
Right.
after being with Alpha and Sika's company, um, you know, after 4 years, I got so motivated to do more because of who I had behind me, backing me. That I signed up with Dr. Tom Pritchard, and I stayed with him and Glenn Jacobs for a year. And I did their camp, and I stayed out in that area for a while, and I was traveling and doing so much. So like, yeah, it was like those are like my trainers, you know, like, and it's rare because most people's answer is like one guy you never heard of or one good wrestler. Like, you know, I was very fortunate to get trained by a handful of Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers, you know.
Absolutely. So when you did the New Japan camp, was that at the point where Rocky Romero was running things, or how
No,
did that go?
this is Katsuri Shibata and Scorpio
Oh yeah.
Sky.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're doing something now, which is I think is tremendous. I wish they would have did it sooner. I think they have like an actual dojo camp where you can train like year round now. I'm not too sure though if that's the truth,
Got you.
but
Got
I
you.
know they're still doing camps. I know they're still doing their camps for sure.
Got you. So, as far as the early days of your training, because we all know that training is a lifelong thing, but
Yeah.
as far as the early days of your training, what would you say was the most challenging part?
Hmm. I would say the distractions. You
Hmm.
know, when I was on, but I got very distracted from the outside. Um, but as far as like avoiding those distractions and coming to practice on time and being at the shows because you don't want to miss opportunities on mingling. It's like coming to work and then not paying attention and you're missing the objective of the job. You know, like you might just come across somebody, but you're too busy in your phone or arguing with your girlfriends, you know what I mean?
Right.
And or boyfriends for other people, you know, there's girls that wrestle and other people that wrestle as well, days and whatnot. But the thing about it is, it's just like it's just a very challenging business to not get distracted because there's just so much
Right.
going on. As a fan, you see it. There's so much going on,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
just like, oh my god, and you just so the distractions, and I think the flip bump at first. That flip bump was so hard. That flip bump was so hard, man. Uh, I I always curved, but then Dory fixed it for me. I'll teach people right now. They actually listen word for word. They can flip bump anybody. You kick your back leg up like a scorpion. You try to kick your head, the back of your head with your heel, and then you flip.
Hmm.
Ow. And that's good to do because God forbid some knucklehead grabs you and throws you, you can flip and protect yourself. So this is like legit stuff. Like all this stuff we learn in wrestling are like real combat like things. Like most people, if I grab them and throw them in a projectile way where they're gonna flip over, they don't know
Hmm.
how to defend that. You know,
Right.
they're just gonna land on their neck and die or get paralyzed. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or get hurt,
Absolutely.
at the least. But
Right.
so it's just so much combat, so much things. You just like you just learn how to be like water. For real, you
Yep.
really do. You
Yep.
know?
Yep. So speed round, and this is going to be a mix of names from today and some old school names. So this is going to be
Okay,
fun.
gotcha.
Trick Williams.
He's pretty good, man. He reminds me of a young Booker T.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll agree with you there. You
I
know,
like him.
being a dude from the South, man, I grew up on WCW and all that. I just turned 55. I've been watching wrestling since I was around 11. So
Okay, yeah.
I've seen a lot over the last 40 some odd years.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, but speaking of that, what is your earliest wrestling related memory?
Oh God, my mom and my aunt and my dad making a big deal of Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. That was the biggest thing ever. Like my mom and dad put that on. I remember watching that all the time. That was like my first big match. And I don't even think I was born for that. This was on a VHS. This is like this was
Hmm.
after the fact that it happened. But I remember them having that VHS and I remember them putting it on and like legit, we watched it from beginning to end, and
Oh yeah.
that was pretty much like my first introduction through people, But then, like, I saw, like, years, I would watch wrestling, but like I was so drawn. I was like 4 years old when this all happened, Then when I
Hmm.
turned the TV on, at the time, it was like Lex Luger versus Yokozuna,
Oh yeah.
and I was always a chubby kid growing up. So like when I saw Yokozuna, I was like, yeah, I was like, get him. Go get them pretty boys, Yoko. Beat them up. I mean? We got someone leading us big boys, you know what I mean? So like Yokozuna was like my
Absolutely.
first, like, me finding a wrestler like Yoko versus Lex, and then the Shawn Michaels with all the reflectors. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
man. Good time. That's like my first memory, man. That's crazy. Didn't even think about that.
So, away from wrestling, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
Boxing. I love boxing. I love music. Again, I could have went farther with my boxing career. I just chose not to,
Hmm.
because I just knew with all the trouble I was getting into, which I'm like an advocate for, because there's a lot of people who are a product of their environment and don't know how to escape that. And I did. So fortunately, it's just it's an interesting thing, you know what I mean? I kind of lost my train of thought because I thought I heard my family member, what I was speaking to you about earlier, is making sure they're okay. But
Gotcha.
yeah, what can I say?
Gotcha. So, um, your hometown, you said, is New York. Are you pretty much New York born, New York bred?
Yeah. I grew up in New York my whole life, man, but I'm Puerto Rican, so yo me crié en Puerto Rico también un ratito, which means like I grew up out
See,
there for a little bit. You know what I
gotcha.
mean? I traveled around and stuff. But it's just so much. You know what I mean? I would say New York raised me. You know what I mean? It made me who I am today,
Yep.
for sure.
What what would you say is your favorite thing about New York?
I love the fact that you can make like, honestly, you could turn shit to sugar here. You really can. You literally could make shit turn to sugar, and then make a sugar company, and then an empire, and retire. It's just no other place ever. And I've traveled so many places, and there's a lot of mom and pop things when you go down south more, and there's a lot of clicks when you go down south more. Up here, there's just such an abundance, because you gotta understand, like, all these other states, there's just so much space in between, like North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia. These are big states. Florida, big states.
Hmm.
New York is so small, and it's big when you go up to the northern part, but nobody wants to go up there. No disrespect, like the Buffalo and Albany and all that, because not to be disrespectful, but I still don't know how Albany became the capital. I don't know, because everyone's in Manhattan, everyone's in Brooklyn, everyone, you know what I mean? But all jokes aside, it's just a different environment. You could, and I think that's the difference between people in New York, is because, like, the fee is so high to live here, but what it offers you can have a job like this. If you don't want to work, that's your fault. If you got no money, that's because you don't want to work. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So there's
Gotcha.
plenty of jobs out here. So like that,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's like the biggest thing, because you could learn, like, just literally, you could fail today and be successful tomorrow. That's
Yep.
why I love it out here.
Awesome. Awesome. Speed round. Chris Hero.
Oh, he's awesome. Chris Hero is
Yeah.
awesome. I met him a few times. His I not to bring up stuff, but I think his girlfriend Rachel was a wrestler. I forgot his name. I'm terrible. Rachel Ellering. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Rachel Ellering. She was part of our New Japan camp, which was cool. She was one of the wrestlers that was part of us when we signed up. But yeah, Chris Hero is amazing, man. That's
Oh
how I
yeah.
met them. That's how I met them, because she was there, and then later on, he did some
She's
seminars for Evolve.
she's Paul's daughter, right?
Yes, Paul Ellerin's daughter.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
from
yeah,
Legion of Doom.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So at the time, like that's how I found out about them, because that was kind of like my like in to say hi. I was like, oh, I went to class, blase blase with her, and I was like, oh, nice to meet you. But he's just so great. He's like the epitome of like, doesn't matter your body type, you're a great wrestler. You're a great wrestler. You know what I mean? And that's
Right,
something I always admired, because, I love wrestling, but the way these bookers book it, they just want to make this like the most vanity driven, beautiful, voluptuous thing. When in reality, real fights are real fights. You look at people like Anthony Joshua when he went against Andy Ruiz, and Andy Ruiz knocked him out, became heavyweight champion of the world. And he didn't look
mm-hmm.
like a heavyweight champion. He just looked like one of those people you just shrug over, like, you know what I mean? So,
Right,
and when you look at people like Tank Abbott, you look at people like Mike Hunt, these are big guys who don't, look as, I guess I wouldn't say as aesthetically pleasing, but we're in a different era. This
right.
is like, I'm like a Bruiser Brody type guy. I like
Yep.
Vader. I like Yoko.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Bam
Yep. Yep.
Bam. That's me. Like Stan Hansen. I love that, not to
Yeah.
knock anyone else.
Oh no, no. But but speaking of Chris Hero, the tag team work he did with Claudio Castagnoli as the Kings of Wrestling, that was some fabulous stuff.
You know what? I'm glad you told me that. I'm going to watch it, because I missed that. I did miss that.
Yeah, that's worth. You can probably do some digging around on the web and find some matches. But man, they were a sensational tag team.
I'm
So.
excited to watch that. Yes, absolutely. I didn't get too into Ring of Honor. I
Mhm.
kind of got more into like WWF, then like ECW, and then
Gotcha.
like WCW. Really, I got into New Japan by accident. I
Mm,
heard of it, I liked it, but it was like hard to get. I couldn't figure out how to get it. Like
gotcha.
at the time, at least at the time when I was really like into the wrestling. I still was into wrestling, but like I said, I had those gaps in between my career where I was just troubled youth.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, they say the best wrestling personas are yourself turned up to 11. So
Hmm.
tell me a bit about in-ring money-making Che and kind of compare and contrast him with
Jeez,
everyday you.
jeez. Well, I mean, I'm just let it. Look, here's the thing. I'm really just being myself. Um,
Mhm.
Now the 11 is what I would do with no consequence. Does that make sense?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is which is what
It's
I love. Yeah,
you without a filter.
yeah, yeah. So like, I grew up in all these crazy hoods. You know what I mean? And I've seen so much stuff that like back in the day, I used to hustle. I got locked up for it. Then all of a sudden, I started helping kids no longer have to get involved in that, and I felt like it was kind of like my education of being unfortunately in a bad situation, which helped me help these people. So I find it like, it's kind of like, wow, like turning a shit to sugar. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yep.
Uh but yeah, man, this wrestling shit is just crazy. You don't expect to fall into it. It just kind of like happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm very proud of this wrestling stuff. You know what I mean? Because like the old me, like I couldn't. So I had family that was in rap music, and they
Mhm.
were involved with like a lot of big people in the industry, which I was really fortunate to be around. My cousins were involved with like Murder Inc. when Ja Rule was really big, and like all these things when 50 Cent first started. So it was really interesting, like seeing these like people like Mob Deep in the area where I would play basketball. You know what I mean, as a kid.
Right.
So it was just like growing up around those kind of people who, needless to say, you already know from just history of the hip hop community. Uh, you just want to be as big as them. It's kind of like you are who you hang out with, and if all of a sudden you're seeing the biggest gangsters in the world in front of you, you want to step up and you're like, is that tangible? It's kind of the same aspect as professional wrestling. Like, oh my God, like I'm in front of Katsuri Shibata. For people who follow New Japan, that's like humongous. People that follow
Mm-hmm.
the 70s and hear about Dory and the Wild Samoans, that's humongous, you know, but different age groups don't understand that, you know. As the people like the younger kids who know Kane, they really don't know the 70s wrestling like that, you know. So
Right.
I would say like a big influence of that, but it's really just me on 10 with no filter, 11, 12, sometimes 55. It gets crazy. You know what I mean? Like I've gotten so into character at times that like I'll get in trouble sometimes. I won't lie. I've gotten in trouble my fair share, but it adds to the aura. Like people don't realize like this is art. And like no booker, with all due respect, I'm not gonna hurt or be disrespectful. I'm very professional, but like, you know, like I was very fortunate to like be able to come into any company I go to and not have to be that wrestler just like, what do you want me to do? It's kind of like, okay, who's my opponent? That's my
Right.
opponent. Fantastic. You're gonna love this. And they've always gave me that free range. They'll tell me the draw, the outcome, whatever the case may be, the swerve, or how it's going to go about for the next show. But I've always been able to just go and do me. And it's like, I feel like if wrestlers took more initiative and try to really know who they are in real life, they'll be able to create something so authentic that it cannot be duplicated. And that's why, like, you know, people who don't know much about culture, they'll be like, oh, he's just a gangster gimmick. Like, no, I'm not, because everybody else who does it is phony and we all see it. The thing about me is when the show's over, I have this thing, this ambiance that's like, oh shit, he's not turned off yet. Then they bump into me. Oh shit, he hasn't turned off yet. But they don't realize, like, in real life, I'm not going to go and commit a crime.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anymore,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, people need to understand, like, you know, you got people pretending to be something they're not, and they can't relate, and they're not actors because they didn't go to acting class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
like, you know, I'm just I'm being me when I was younger, but in an environment where I won't go to jail. You feel me? And that's where turning
Absolutely.
shit to sugar again happens, because I could have went to jail for such a long time for hustling and doing involved in wrong people. And now when I got out, instead of just flipping burgers and shit like everyone, well, not everyone else, but the majority of people ended up doing, just working the 9 to 5, I created and made my dream out of it. You know? So I think people need
Hmm.
to take real life consideration on like real life events, things that are happening, what they truly love, and really try to mold it. Not just become who they envy or who they admire or who they think is so cool. You know?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So tell us about your favorite match that you've been a part of.
Oh, I don't know. So many.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down. Yeah.
It really is so many. I've had some really good matches with a lot of good men. Um, shoot. Oh man, who? Well, one particular match that I cared for because of my culture being Puerto Rican. I went against the Colognes, Primo and Orlando, and in Puerto Rico, that's a big deal because
Hmm.
their family lineage and stuff. But the thing about it is, here's the thing about Puerto Rico: there's such a disconnect because it's like the crime is so real. You know what I mean? That like all these people are afraid to promote a guy like me. Seriously. And like that's why like the community in Puerto Rico, like he don't get it twisted, the clones are a huge deal in Puerto Rico. But then there's the other half of Puerto Rico, like the youth, that don't care about any of that, right? So I feel
Right.
like, you know, like the reason why I felt like it was a big thing was because my goal is to get that gap filled, and then we can create something so big in the future in Puerto Rico. My goal is to become a star in Puerto Rico one day, but
Hmm.
at the same time, I have to be realistic with my family and with what my family needs. So I have to be in the States, right?
Right.
I'll still go out there and travel and stuff, but I just got to situate everything, make sure all the the business and everything's taken care of out here. But that match to me was just so surreal because I just saw the potential. I saw the gap getting mended. You know what I mean? And the reason why I say that is because look exactly the thought I had many years ago when I wrestled Colognes. Fast forward, Bad Bunny comes in. And I'm like, that gap's getting mended. They're seeing it. And now that group of people who were not caring about wrestling tuned in. And that's the audience I've always have been catering to, if that makes any sense. So when I see Trick Williams, I'm like, okay, about time.
Yeah.
About time you start trying to cater a little bit to this side of the town. You know what I mean? But it's not a matter of, we're not trying to get to that. It's not a matter of race or prejudice. It's not a matter of that, even though all things in life do have it. But it's just a demographic that was a scary thing to tap into because they were afraid. Like, for example, I don't know about down south, but up here in New York, there's clubs that won't let you in if you wear Jordans. Like Jordan sneakers, that's it. You could be the most nicest Christian in the world, Catholic, whatever. Nope, Jordans, because they're labeling. So this society has labeled so much. So when I wrestled the Colognes, I was like, my mind started racing. I'm like, oh my God, this could be something big, something in the future. And hopefully, you know what I mean? Like I said, we had a great match. Everything was great. But at the same time, the future's still bright. You know what I mean? And who knows? I mean, I've wrestled a lot of matches. I wrestled people like Moose. I wrestled people like Shannon Moore, the Headbangers, Rich Swan. I've been incorporated in matches with all these people, and it's been such a dream come true. But when that happened, I just saw that thing, and it's just so funny that all of a sudden Bad Bunny came in, and it just makes me feel like, all right, I'm in sync with this wrestling. Like I'm seeing, you know what I mean? I'm seeing what the business is seeing, and I'm just happy that like I'm in tune with it because then that makes me confident with the next thing that I can, implement,
Right. And, and speaking of, the Puerto Rican element within wrestling, right now you've also got Damian Priest, who used to be Punishment Martinez back in Ring of Honor in New Japan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am beyond happy for that guy. He has worked so hard and worked on his craft
Absolutely.
for so long to have gotten to the level that he's gotten to. It's just great,
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that wrestling in the Puerto Rican community is white hot
Oh
right
yeah.
now. So it's great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. We got so many things happening right now, and just hopefully it expands. There's so much talent there that is not getting tapped into. There's just a pool of talent, and then this good boy pay your dues mentality stuff's got to end because we need people to get opportunity because of their talent, not because I think they're cute or I think they have a nice body. We just need raw talent, man. That's why you love it. With all due respect, that's why we love Jelly Roll because of raw talent. No one's gonna pick him for a swimsuit model, right? No one's assuming that, right? But at the same time, he's got raw talent. But all of a sudden, pro wrestling doesn't want raw talent. Pro wrestling wants who they think is attractive, who can attract money. Well, guess what? Raw talent will attract money because look, it makes me laugh. It makes me think that everyone from the 70s thought they were beautiful because let's be realistic. They were real gritty gridiron men.
Yeah.
Well, now it's a fashion show with shiny tights. I'm just being honest. I'm in the same business.
This is refreshing. This is I am completely digging this. So there's two main ways to, I guess, prepare for or lay out a match. You either largely work it out with your opponent in the back, or you call it in the ring. Do you have a preference between working it out in the back or calling it in the ring?
I feel like people who are nervous like to call everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like people who, once they're more seasoned and experienced, learn how to call it in the ring. It's a lost art, though, to call it in the ring.
Right.
Fortunately, I was trained by the men who mastered it. Shout out to Dory. Shout out to, Alpha and the Wild Samoans and so many people. And the thing that was so beautiful about being part of WXW was like I was their tag team champion. So to be Alpha and Sika's choice to represent their company for this
Oh yeah.
2023 year was such a big thing for me, and um, just having people like Haku around, because here's the thing,
Mm-hmm.
like you learn once you learn how to wrestle, you wrestle. But
Yeah.
then after you get good, how do you get better? And there's these little things that you don't think you can get away with. And it's around when you're around that vet. Remember I was telling you earlier about distractions?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part because I was around a lot of great men when I was younger and I didn't pay attention. I was just so caught up in being a young kid. You know what I mean? But,
Yep.
I can remember when I was with Haku, I didn't realize, like I said, certain things I can get away with. I won't expose the business, but just certain things I can get away with that I didn't think that I thought was a bit too much, maybe. And I was like, when he did it to me, I was like, really? I could do it like that? He was like, yes. I said, oh, the boys are in trouble now. because, because it's just you try to protect each other so much, but sometimes you realize, like, hold on, man. We didn't sign up for this. We signed up for a fight,
Right.
So there's
Right.
there's levels to this.
Oh yeah.
Those people who come in here and get out, leave. Be honest with you, because a lot of these people sign up to this business because they don't know. They want to box, but they couldn't box. They wanted to UFC, they couldn't UFC. They couldn't MMA. They couldn't do karate, kung fu, none of that shit. They were quiet kids who played Pokemon. Now I got no problems with Pokemon. I collect. I got a Charizard that's worth a lot of money, and I'm waiting for that to take off even more. So when I sell it, but like it's just be like I said, be yourself. If that's who you are, cool. But just realize you're in a fight. Remember the
Yep.
people who were before us. People
Absolutely.
forget about the Bruno Sammartinos. People forget about the up north. See, like if you look at wrestling in New York, it was a lot of punches and a lot of kicks. The more down south you go, the more technical it gets.
Right.
The more grappling. The more
Right.
Smoky Mountain, the more spots, the more humor. You go
Mm-hmm.
down south to Florida, it was very technical, very championship esque.
Yep.
So like, once you do your history, you start realizing, like, you know what, they used to pop each other right in the face sometimes. And I'm
Oh
not trying
yeah.
to I'm not trying to kill you, but man, we are trying to make this art. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Absolutely.
that's the beauty about learning how to call it in the ring because it's a real fight now.
Yep.
See, that's the thing. Most people have never been in a real fight, so they feel comfortable. And it's not saying that some people who have never been in a real fight can't call it in the ring because they've been trained by some of the best, right? But a
Right.
majority of people feel more comfortable orchestrating a plot. But like when you get to call it in the ring, it becomes a real fight, and it's
Yep.
just oh, the excitement. The excitement that comes, the when you hear, one of the best things about it is being in a tag team with my partner Jason Dugan. Shout out BIA gang gang. But being in there when we do heat and we get in the ring and do heat, we don't call that in the back. We just do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you get hope, you better figure out. You know what I mean? Be able to work and really, it's just beautiful. Like that's something I feel like a lot of guys are missing, because then they go out there and they wrestle nervous. And they're all nervous and stuff. But when you go out there and you treat it like a real fight, oh man, you just become. Oh, you don't know what's gonna happen. You just feel the crowd. And that's something
Ab-
this generation has lost. So personally, I know how to do both. And I know how to also just feel without even talking. That's another old thing I learned from Dory Funk. So Dory Funk, when I first started, Dory Funk didn't teach me how to call it. Dory Funk taught me, like when I first started in the beginning, like with like the couple months here and there when I was younger before my stints, you know, it was the 7 layers of doom kind of match. But then when
Yeah,
I was with Dory, it was like throw that shit out the window. We're freestyling, baby, and we're gonna take over. And oh, you take over, I take over, you take over, and it's just you don't know what you're gonna be in, and it just feels so good when you react. You know,
absolutely. Speaking of Jason Dugan, I've got him coming up on here in a few weeks. I'm looking forward
oh
to that.
man, we are a menace. We are a menace. We threw
Awesome.
Jerry into a washing machine one time and turned it on.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you know about that.
Um, no, I hadn't heard that story, but I had Jerry on a few weeks ago. He's another great
He's a
guy.
nut. He's a nut.
Yeah, he
I beat
is.
him up and he still calls me to hang out. It makes no sense. You know? But I tell you this, you ask Jason when you talk to him, hey, so about that time you and Money Making Che threw Jerry Swirls into a dryer. He'll tell you
I,
all
w-
about it.
I will definitely bring that up. So speed round, and we're gonna go back in time a little bit with this one.
Okay.
The Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
Ooh. You know what? I can't lie to you. You're gonna teach me something today. Now, is Mad Dog part of? 'Cause I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a Mad Dog Vashon?
There was a Mad Dog Vashon, but Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer was he was his own Mad Dog. He wasn't
Okay,
tied up with.
I'm gonna watch him now. See, I love that about things because I'm not one of those guys gonna bullshit. I love to learn. So Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. Okay, tell me
Yeah.
about him.
Well, he was big in mostly Georgia Championship Wrestling, which became WCW ultimately, but back in the early to mid '80s, and he had a pretty long, pretty well known feud with Tommy Rich back
Okay,
then, and they put on some real bangers. Like I said, we're talking early to mid '80s, so 40 years ago.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
but but yeah, definitely take some time and look up Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
I
So
will. I will, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to learn some new wrestlers, man.
yeah,
Maybe I'll take something from him.
so let's see here. Okay. If you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
Great on the mic. Great on the
Okay.
mic. I love being great in the ring. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying I'm great, but I've been trained by the greats, so I know a little bit. But no one gives a damn about your wrestling moves if you can't talk about it.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah, I mean, so I love promos, man. I love talking shit. It's like rapping to me, you know. I
Yeah.
just get to no thoughts, no nothing, just
Just let it
freestyle.
go.
Oh,
Just let it
you'd be
go.
surprised the shit you'd say if you just let it go.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
There's some shit inside you, man. I'm sure you want to get out. You don't even know you want to get out eternally. It's come right out.
So, what has been your strangest encounter with a fan?
Oh God. Oh man, I've had some weird ones.
I'm sure. Who hasn't?
Yeah, I've had some weird ones, but I wouldn't say. You know what was strange to me one time that someone just didn't get it. Like, just someone didn't get it. They really wanted to fight me. You know what I mean? And like, I think that's strange to me. Like, why are you here? Like, why are you here? Why are you trying me right now? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You think I won't just punch you in your shit? You think I care about this bullshit payday? This hot dog and a handshake bullshit? No. I'll bust your fucking ass. And then what? You think you're gonna get me fired? I'm an entrepreneur, motherfucker. So like I think one of the most strangest things to me was one time I was at what's it called? I was at Earth Day birthday, and I had this crazy match. Like, shout out to Christopher Source, man. This guy, he's just ready to fucking bleed and go. He don't give a fuck, bro. He's just ready to fight for the love of wrestling. And I'm coming out, right? And this fan is trying to fight me. He's legit like trying to get in my face. And so I'm, being my character. I just shit on him. I just diss him. And so he's so offended. I'm like, I'm sorry that I've been trained to shit talk, pal. You know what I mean? So like I'm walking through doing this fucking thing and I get in the ring. So now I'm, I get the edge on Christopher early. And I just start fucking going into town. Now, while I'm going into town on him, I keep looking at the fan. And I keep saying, you keep talking shit, it's going to be you. And it just got to the point where, like, I'm just like fighting this fan through Christopher. You know what I mean? And like, it's just so weird because, like, yeah, it's one thing for the fans to get like really into it. But it was another thing for this guy to really think like he was gonna like really take a crack at me. You know what I mean? So I've had these strange encounters because my character is just so like imposing,
Mm-hmm.
that people get offended. Because I'm the kind of guy that I'll talk shit. Like if you're with a girl, sorry, pal. I'm gonna try, you already know where I'm going with this. You know what I mean? Why is she with you? She should be with a guy like me. And they're, well, now you're upset. So what do you think I'm going to say? Oh, it's a part of the gig. No, it's not part of the gig. You want to fight me now? Fuck it. I'll get fired right now for this fucking shit. I'll save this fucking business. I'll bring this business back to the ethics. Okay? And that's the problem. And that's why I think it's so beautiful. God, I find it so strange. It's like, you know what you're coming for. And I still got you. Still got you mad and ready to fucking risk your whole life away. You know, when it could have been just a good old time, and after the show, maybe we could have hung out. It's like, so I find that strange that like, the fans, like we have such a if you do your job right, you can really, really bring the strange out of people.
Oh yeah. And love you or hate you, they won't forget you.
Oh, that guy remembers me till day. I know.
Yeah.
I probably just came across his head right now. His ear ringing.
So do you have a preference yourself between working heel or babyface?
I love working heel. I don't mind working babyface. I know how to do it. I do it well. But there's just so much fun in being a heel. There's fun in being a baby face, but there's just something about these coaches. See, like I said, again, shout out to my alumni trainers. Like, when I was coming up in the beginning, I'm a student of the game. I went to everyone. I even went to the shitty coaches just to see what they were teaching. You know what I mean? And a lot of these other coaches, they're just teaching you how to come on. Like it's just so fucking corny, you know what I mean? So like I'm like, okay, what can I do to stand out? You know what I mean? And I think that's what when you really I'm about to give the jewel away, thousands of dollars. Here's the answer. When you really develop your character, then you really can create a face. Like, look at John Moxley.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm him, but I'm just giving you an example of like people who can still be themselves as a heel and bring it into a face. Look at Nick Gage. Nick Gage is the biggest heel there is, but look at him. Big face. Shout out to Nicky Gage. That's my boy too. I'll fuck with him heavy. He's a good guy, man. That's the thing. Real recognize real in this business. And that's why I'm fortunate enough to actually be able to speak to these people and hang out with these people because, I'm just being myself. We can smell the bullshit from a mile away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I've mentioned this on other live streams. the people that can seamlessly shift back and forth from heel to baby and back and not really change anything about their character except maybe some very subtle things
Mm-hmm.
as far as how they get the audience to receive them. To me, that's magic. you
Yeah.
know I mean,
Yeah.
if you're that good with your character that you can shift back and forth like that without batting an eye, I
Yeah.
mean, that's that's incredible. Like
It's just
like the work that Moxley is doing in AEW right now with
he's
this
keeping it
whole
going.
new
Yeah.
thing he's got going,
Yeah.
man.
He's gonna be a star anywhere and everywhere.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, because he's bringing something that this business is missing. You know,
Hmm.
he's like I said, man. Nick Gage is one of the greatest characters
Oh yeah,
because it's not a character, but we use the term because we're in wrestling. Money
right.
Making Shay is one of the best characters, but guess what? He's not a character. You
He's
know,
you.
and that's the thing. These people, like how can a guy like me become friends with a guy like Nick? Because authenticity.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like, there's many other wrestlers, but I'm not gonna name them all. But the ones I've named near and dear to me. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, like it's just like when you see people like Moxley. Some companies are afraid to take risks on people, and Moxley passed the test. If you know what I mean.
Yep.
You know, he's like he's rugged, but he's just the right amount of rugged that they're willing to risk on. And that's a blessing because he's the fucking
Hmm.
man.
Yep.
He's representing us, us rugged motherfuckers, you know what I mean, who really are about this shit. But we don't get it sometimes because I've had so many opportunities taken away from me because people in the back are nervous about me taking a spot or some weirdness going on, and they'll try to bury you in the back. So, when I see people like Trick Williams, I'm happy to see people represented. And because, like, when you see a Trick Williams and John Moxley, they're very different. But at the same time, they're representing a certain corner of of society, that has been shadowed out. You know, people
Hmm.
think the hood is just black. No, the hood is black, Spanish, white. I mean, it's every race. So it's
Yep.
so cool to see a hood motherfucker like John Moxley killing it, making this money. Because it's like, okay, perfect. There is an audience for this. And like when
Yep.
Eddie Kingston gets healed, there's going to be another representation of a portion missing. When Bad Bunny came in, another representation of a portion missing. You know what I mean? When I go to Puerto Rico and I go to La Placita, I go to La Perla, these are all places that Puerto Ricans and people know about. These are the hood ass areas. And those people aren't really leaving to go to a wrestling show. They're partying, doing gangster shit, and living life in paradise. But now they got somebody representing them. Hell yeah,
Yep.
we're gonna go because we know after that match the party's gonna be crazy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
People
Yep.
want to be part. People want to be in depth with their culture. People want to celebrate their culture. That's why, again, Pops Alpha, I miss you so much. Rest in peace, Pops. I know you hear me. You, that's what he instilled. Represent your culture. Those Samoans, they don't play.
Mm-mm.
They represent their culture to the fullest. And if you're trying to pretend to be them and you just over here trying to be all funny, no. You this is authenticity. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not gonna make pretend I'm gonna be any other Hispanic race. You know what I mean? It's my culture. Now I can understand. Yes, I've had influences from people like Yokozuna, Umaga. I'm heavily influenced by people like Gary Albright. These are all people in that community of WXW, but you don't see me represent and acting a certain way. I am an islander in my own right. See, that's another thing about WXW. Alpha always helped those people who didn't get those opportunities in the beginning because of this diversity issue that's been going on in professional wrestling for so long that a lot of us, are hush hush about, but are clearly speaking up about, as you see in the media. And it's just, it's just tremendous that like when you see like the island of Puerto Rico and the island of Samoa, we're living the same problem. We're living the same life, you know? And then like like I said, like one of my good friends got married into their family and became Alpha's son-in-law. Shout out to my boy Vertigo, man, Julio the Cure. He's one of the best, Julio Rivera. And you know, having people like him vouch for me, having the
Mhm.
Wild Samoans vouch for me, that's what I needed. Because I didn't have no one who understood me vouch for me. You know,
Right.
I had other great trainers, but we're just not the same people.
Gotcha.
So it's hard for someone to vouch for someone that they're kind of like iffy about, you know.
Right.
So like that's what's beautiful about pro wrestling, all this culture is that, you know, there's just so much opportunity. You know what I mean? When you find that community, you can evolve. You know.
Gotcha. Speed round. Roderick Strong.
I hear he hits hard. I hear he
It
hits
looks
hard, man.
like it. It looks like it. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like he likes to work stiff.
Oh yeah, I've heard stories about this man, but you know what? He's stiff and snug to the point where he's getting paid six figures. So who
Yep.
gives a shit, right? And that's what I love because Roderick Strong, he's one of those people that you know you look at and you might second guess if you think you're so tough, and that man will drop you on your shit.
Hmm.
He's a legit tough guy for his character, and not even just his character. He's in good shape. He's not going to get tired, and he's going to be ready to fight.
Absolutely. So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? Something that you can have watched it a million times and it just never gets old, and there's always some new little nugget that you can glean from it.
It's too many.
Yeah,
Too many.
it's a tough question.
It is. I can always Google Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker.
Yeah,
Never get tired of it. I can always Google Triple H versus The Rock. Never get tired of it. It doesn't matter what match they have. Never get tired of it. Um, shoot. One match that runs in my mind right now. Well, I'm just gonna say the match that I was gonna actually watch today, but I haven't watched it in so long that I kind of forgot. But this is a match that's particularly dear to my heart. Is when British Bulldog went against Shawn Michaels for that European
mhm.
title. Because when I was a little kid, I was probably like 6, 7 years old. I was a little hustler, and I convinced some kid to let me borrow British Bulldog and Shawn Michaels action figures. So, for nothing. I don't know. I don't know what I gave him. I gave him the fairy's dust. But yeah, man. So just like I remember Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, that whole feud, just the whole feud between DX and the Hart Foundation. You know, like it's really
Mhm.
hard to specifically name a match, but because like not saying once you see one match with a person is the same thing, because clearly it's never happened like that with The Rock and Stone Cold. Has always been different, especially their matches at WrestleMania. But it's
Right.
just like that whole Shawn Michaels Bret Hart thing prior to Shawn, like that whole DX hit, that it was just such a beautiful story. Like I can go back and watch that whole DX evolution a million times. See, like remember you asked if like you like the wrestling or the promo, which would you pick? And I picked the promo. It's because of that. Because the wrestling is just this. It's just
Right.
that much. Everything else, you know, no one would have cared about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart if Shawn Michaels wasn't being the way he was and Bret Hart wasn't acting the way he was. It was such a thing that when Bret Hart went to Canada, he was the biggest face ever. And then when he
Right.
was in America, he's the worst. He was the shits, the heel, you know,
Yep.
even though he was the face.
Right.
So, you know, Bret Hart's one of those wrestlers, heel or face, he doesn't change. Very subtle.
Yep.
Very subtle. Same tone, same attitude. Nothing's changed. You
Yep.
know, Kurt Angle had that ability.
Mhm.
You know, not many people. Jericho had that ability, but Jericho had another ability where he could change.
Yeah.
That's ability that's really hard to be successful in change.
Yeah,
So
that guy has reinvented himself so many times over the course of his 25-year or whatever career. I
tell you,
mean,
he's the
it's
Kanye
crazy.
West of wrestling. I said it. He'll wear that pink shirt and have everyone wearing pink shirts.
Yep, yep. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent for you? Who would you love to work?
Damn, it's easy, man. Jacob Fatu. I was
Oh
supposed
yeah.
to work him one time. I was really supposed to work him one time. And it was so funny because, like, when I started this business, I was getting compared to him and Eddie Kingston all the time.
Hmm.
All the time. And it was to the point where people were like, oh, man, you guys remind me. I would hang out with the GCW guys, and they would come up to me and they'd be like, when I was hanging out with Nikki and Jordan and all these guys, all the big guys there, I love those guys. They're fucking awesome. And they would tell me, they'd be like, hey, you remind me of Jacob. And I'm like, I hear this a lot, because Jacob is a real one too, So I would love to
Hmm.
have a match with Jacob. Realistically, right now, I would love to have a match with Zilla. You know what I mean? I met him. He's a great guy. We're part of the same family. But it's just I think we would have such a great match, and I think it's going to be in my cards because I'm going to travel to Reality of Wrestling soon. So you never know,
Hmm.
that match actually might happen. But I mean, there's just so many wrestlers I would love to wrestle, but I would love to definitely get in the ring with either Jacob Frost or Eddie Kingston, just for right now, just for the spec of like the culture, the
Hmm.
the comparisons I've had in my life to them, and they're great on their own end.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure.
I could
For
I could
sure.
be I could be a fanboy and say, "Oh, my dream match," but like a realistic match that like I think with the right push under me, the Eddie Kingston match can happen. I feel with the right push under me, and if God goes well, the Jacob Fatu thing could happen because the way WWE releases talent or whatever the case may be. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think he's a stud who's going to retire there. But I'm just saying maybe I get signed and go there. But sure
You never know.
deals,
Yeah.
sure shot deals as of right now. I think if I could get a match, and I it's not a shout out, it's not a call out. This is just two hood motherfuckers. I think that equally have you know, their own path that is gonna cross eventually. We're close in age. We're very similar, and as far as outside the ring on the way we carry ourselves. So I just think it'd be a banger, me and him. Because I studied his dad. It's so weird because I studied his father so much, Umaga, and I studied his uncles, and I studied his whole family, and his family trained me. So,
Hmm.
to see someone um, like him getting in after his situation, I think it's just poetic match. You know what I mean? Just a banger. And we'll just fuck each other up. You know what I mean? Smoke a blunt after or some shit.
Absolutely. And, uh, I saw a little bit of his stuff in MLW, but I wasn't hugely familiar with him when he arrived in WWE.
Yeah.
But man, he has a presence in the ring that is almost unlike anybody else right now. And I
Well, yeah. You
and
nailed it.
and I and I think he is on the verge of really superstardom, and
Oh yeah.
I'm thrilled for him. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with him.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. He's a hell of a talent and a real person. You know what I mean? It's just like I said. There's so many guys, and I'm not saying there's so many like Jacob. Jacob is his own person, his own person. I'm my own person, but he's got the right people behind him. You know what I mean? And
right.
WWE feels safe having him around because they had the right people behind him, and they could feel that they could tame him if because this is the thing. WWE, they're a business and they get worried when they get hood characters. And I'm a
Right.
hood character and I've been in the radar and people get a little nervous about me. You know what I mean? And it's not because of my talent, it's just people get nervous around me. They want to make sure I don't I don't get in trouble or whatever the case may be. But you know what? that means I'm doing my character so good. These people legit get scared. And it's like, no, once they meet me, they're like, oh wow, you're not as threatening as I thought you would be. You know what I mean? But it's just such a beautiful thing, This business is just to see people get that opportunity and represent, like I said, a corner of the world that we've been trying to avoid, and it's been seen in wrestling. You see it.
Right.
I'm not mentioning other places, but I've been to other places, and the whole card, you just look at it, you're like, damn, man, like I see clearly you're booking someone who set the ring up. This is your buddy here. You know what I mean? It's just so one sided. It's just happy to see diversity. You know. I love that. That's what I love about the future of wrestling. I feel like that's happening now. I think NXT is at the front of it right now, doing what they're doing, especially touching that section, you know, of
Absolutely.
society, because it's a lot of money. Look
Hmm.
at it when you go out to the clubs. Who's spending that money? That section.
Yep.
All that money is in that section, so they want that money. So business wise, it's a smart move.
Absolutely. So, you've been doing this for a number of years. So, what hurts right now?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything, man. If I stay still too long, I should hurt. People think this is all fugazi. No, this shit hurts,
Well,
man. This
trust me,
shit,
I get that. I hate it when people use the F word, the fake
the
word,
real F word.
because you know, um, predetermined, sure.
Yeah,
Orchestrated to some extent, yeah. But fake, absolutely not.
yeah,
I
absolutely
mean,
not.
and uh, yeah, I know your body takes a beating doing this. So it's always interesting. Just uh, um, that's one of my questions I've asked in all of these is what hurts right now, and
Yeah.
the really young guys will usually say nothing, but the guys that have been around for a while, it's like everything.
Oh,
Or
everyone. Yeah.
what
Oh,
doesn't
I'll go
hurt?
all day. I'll do an Iron Man. Shut the fuck up. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, this shit hurts. This shit hurts, and if you're not trained properly, you won't even be able to come back for around the next match. You know what I mean? It hurts. If
Hmm.
you don't know how to take a fall, you don't know how to protect yourself, especially when these people are literally going in the ring and calling it. You know, that's the thing. Like, I wish people learned how to call it more, because you get that little bitch out of you who's scared. Everyone has a little bitch in them, you know? You gotta beat that motherfucker up and get him out of you. And that's the truth. Because if you don't practice this, you're gonna be scared. You're gonna be really scared. And it's something you gotta do, because it's kind of like boxing, man. You go into UFC, you go into boxing, you go to Kung Fu, I don't care what you do. They're freestyling. They are
Yep.
freestyling. And that's the beautiful thing about wrestling. Are you good enough to freestyle? Are you good enough to fix an imperfection? Are you good enough to even make it not even let it happen? You know?
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, knowing everything that you know now, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Pay attention. Stop getting distracted.
Yep.
ADD is a motherfucker. ADHD is even worse. You know, it's very distracting, but at the same time, believe in yourself, focus, really, really, really take this in consideration and know people sign up. I had this conversation with some kid today. He wants to be a rapper, or he is. He just made a mixtape, and I was telling him, I was like, "Oh, that's what's up, man. You should make some content with me." And he's excited. He's gonna do some content with me. But he was like, "Yeah, I didn't realize this job entailed me to do so much content creation." I said, "Shit." I said, "When I became a wrestler, I had to learn how to set up a ring. That means I had to be skilled at putting together a structure that many people don't know how to do. So that's a trade right there. I had to learn how to film. Boom, I'm a film. I film now. That's a trade right there. Next thing you know, I'm a photographer. I got to get pictures done. That's a trade right there. Now on top of that, I have to make T-shirts. Boom. I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm a clothing designer now. I'm an artist now. I'm a logo maker now. Next thing you know, you're doing all these things, and
Yep.
that's what happens. That's how you get there. You know, People think it's just like, but I did it. Why haven't I been picked? It's not how this business goes. Not how anybody. It
Nope.
happens. That's that 1 out of 33 million. That
Yep.
happens.
Yep. But the business doesn't owe you anything.
No,
I
I know
mean,
people. I know people who were signed who never had a wrestling match. I
yeah.
know people who were signed and was seen on the big screen all day, and they literally had no matches. They just had a physique. That was
Yep.
it. They had a look to them, a size. They were like, perfect. Come, we'll teach you everything. Motherfucker, why can't y'all do that to us?
Yep.
Fuck, we working hard and shit. What am I supposed to do, huh? What am I supposed to do? And that's the
Yep.
sad part about this business. That's why people are dying. It's the truth. We don't talk about it. A lot of people are dying, young deaths, because they're taking steroids.
Yep.
A lot of people are depressed. They're overdosing on drugs because they're not getting picked.
Right.
It's a sad business, and no one's talking about it. And I'm glad that I'm on this site and I could talk about it because I know people who unfortunately have taken their life because of this business, and it's heartbreaking. And it's so heartbreaking that someone can go so off end because this business is so judgmental, and that's something people don't know about this business. And I think truthfully, it needs to be known that, like, hopefully in time people will stop being so damn judgmental, and give the opportunities. I'm not saying everyone deserves these major opportunities, but I'm just saying, like, there's people who do, and they're not getting it because of what? It's not the talent, it's what is it? And that's the networking. It's who's in your ear? Who's making you unsure? It's like a stock market, right? If you have a business and you have a stocks go up with good news. Good news, put more money in. Good news, put more money in. What? This person did what? This person got arrested for what? Give me that. I'm done. Tanks the stock. That's
Yep.
wrestling for you. Who is feeding you the bullshit is tanking my stock. We
Yep.
gonna find you. We gonna find your ass.
Absolutely. So, something that we've done in all of these that's just been kind of fun is we've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. So, my previous guest the other night was a wrestler and podcaster from Florida by the name of Chris Carnage.
Okay.
And he posed the question, what was the inspiration for your current finisher?
Oh, beautiful. So, my current finisher right now, I've been really leaning with the crippler crossface, because it's just very, very easy to get everyone in. And I'm not here to impress no one but the people who are trying to pay. So, if you're trying to give me, I look at it like in wrestling, right? Our competition is UFC, right? So I want to make my match, because I've had this effect on people. Like, people will say, like, your match was the best one, or people will say your match is like looked really real, which is funny because it's just like, like, it's a compliment and a slap. It's like, listen, like, you should know what you're here for. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but the fact of the matter is, the finisher, because I used to do a splash off the top because I had inspirations from, like, Eddie Guerrero, of course, being Hispanic, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, the Usos, just that Umaga, really. That's really where I got the splash from, Umaga. You know what I mean? But other than that, I was like, okay, like, can't be doing that all the time. I was like, then I had this really cool reverse um, full Nelson STO, which I would grab the person, I throw them in the air and jump in the air with them and spin them out and pull them down. And then I was hurting myself more than that, more than anyone else.
Mhm.
So I was like, this is getting tiring. So I was doing this Peruvian necktie,
Oh yeah.
which is that's really my finishing move. But I alternate between the Peruvian necktie and the crippler crossface, depending on the size of the person, simply because you got to be realistic. And that's why I started implementing that submission, just because it's no one's doing it no more because of the tabooness.
Right.
But it's just such a freaking amazing move, especially a big guy throwing a punch. There's just so many ways to slip into it from so many things. So, like, not advice, but just ideas of like wrestling to get better is you want that realism so much. I met a lot of great wrestlers. I remember specifically meeting Sami Zayn way before he was a big guy. And I remember asking him, "What do you think?" He already was signed, so he was a big guy already. He was already signed, but like before Bloodline stuff.
Right.
And I remember telling him, I'm like, what are they looking for? What's the number one thing you could tell me? He goes, make it look as real as possible. And I'm like, it's only one way to make it look real. You know what I mean? And that's to make it real. That's the only thing. But you got to have the right dance partner. You got to have, and that's why the big leagues works, because those guys on Raw and SmackDown are hitting each other at a rate that these indie guys are afraid to do. You know what I mean? So I think, to be frank, if you're gonna ever think about being signed or traveling the world, you want to learn how to call it on the fly, and having a submission move will make your on the fly so smooth that you could just transition rather than having a spotty finish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've actually got a story for you about the Peruvian necktie. I
Nice.
actually, a number of years ago, I trained for a few years in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and
Nice.
we learned the Peruvian necktie, and so the guy that I was rolling with, caught me in it, and I felt like I was fine. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to turn in on him to try to work my way out of it. And next thing I know, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and he's like, "You went to sleep, dude." and
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that it came on so quick. I had
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It's a
And so I've got
very,
all the
very
respect in the
difficult
world for
move
that, for
to
the Peruvian
apply.
necktie, man. That was
It's a very difficult move to apply, but
yeah,
it is the most dangerous move I ever seen. It legitimately is practically a front face lock with the person's arm under their throat.
yep,
And then while you're choking them with the guy's own arm and yours, because you're cranking like this, you're
yeah,
pushing down with your leg, and it's
right,
creating like a C clamp.
right,
And it's so beautiful if you can spin and roll into it, but you know, it gets difficult because that's one of those moves that even when you try to work it, it's tight.
yeah,
It's a tight, it's tight.
and
It's no matter what, it's tight. So I've improvised on it and fought out and rolled in, and that's what I'm trying to say. When you can create magic and work on the fly, let's say you get that Peruvian necktie, but it's too tight and it slips out because the guy's like, wow, bam, you got him in another move right
yep,
there. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm really working on right now. That's why I went to Tennessee at JPWA to work with Dr. Tom Pritchard and Kane, was to learn that on the fly technician. That's something
hmm,
very, 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 very important these days to learn. I feel like it's a lost art because nowadays it's like a segment in this TV, and if you can rehearse your lines, you'll be all right, right? But what happens is I've been in the ring with stars. I call them, or they call them stars, who everyone's like praising and praising and praising, but sometimes even they forget a spot because they're not trained in that type of wrestling. So,
yep,
like I said, it doesn't mean you're a better wrestler. It just is a really good thing to know because you could turn shit to sugar. Because sometimes when you have shit, it starts to stink. You got to clean it up really quick. You got to have that pooper scooper ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. So, since this is part of a series, do you have a question that you would like to pose to the next guest?
Yeah, I got a
Okay.
question for the next guest. If you had a hardcore match with Money Making Che, how would you go about it? And what do you think you would have to do to beat me?
Okay.
Because I'm going to win the match. There's no rules. It caters to me. Have fun. I'm going to have people walk me down. I'm going to have M. Badu, who benched 300 plus pounds over his head army press and standing. I'm going to have Jason, who's sneaky as shit. I'm going to have Frankie, after I beat you up, take his shirt off and do the belly splash on you for no reason, just to embarrass you. So, what would you do knowing that I have all these people and brothers in arms with me ringside in a match with no rules? And you're by yourself. What are you gonna do?
That is that's a good question. That's definitely
That's
food for
right.
thought. Food for
That's
thought.
right. That's right. Because I'm telling you, when you get in a match with me, player, it's red panty night day, baby. Just like my boy Conor McGregor said, your girlfriend's gonna get so excited to know you're going against the money maker, the honey taker. And if you keep talking shit, I'll line him a ditch like the Undertaker. Because money making Che's a man of the people, and there's no equal. And if you disrespect, there won't be a sequel. Because at the end of the day, when you bet on money making Che, it's a money making day, Matt. You dig?
I dig. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
So we're pretty much getting toward the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you'd like to give some hype to?
I do. I do. November 9th is going to be a Comic Con that I'm going to be wrestling at. Give me a second and I can actually pull up where the frick is going to be. Also, I'm going to be at Next Level for ALW defending my hardcore title. From what I see, let's take a look. I actually got the dates pulled up right here. Let's take a look here. Let's see. Merritt Square Mall Con. Right here, November 9th, 2024. Money Maker Che is going to beat the shit out of somebody and then read a comic book. But also, shout out to December 15th, Reindeer Games. I'm going to be there defending my hardcore championship because no one's going to fucking beat me for it because I'm telling you, that's what I does when it comes to these matches. There's no rules. I win. But Next Level, from what I'm looking at, is going to be Saturday, November 30th. There's going to be people like Trevor Lee going against Davey Richards there. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
who my opponent is going to be, but I know they're
But
not
it
going to
doesn't matter. They're going
they're not
down.
going to win. They're going down. I don't care if I got to cheat. I don't care what I got to do if it's unconstitutional. Damn it. I will win.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Sounds like
yeah.
you've got it all mapped out.
Listen, man, when you get trained by Hall of Famers, you already know what it is. It's just a matter of the booker man to not be crooked, man. You dig?
I dig. I dig. So as far as what's coming up for the Throwdown, this coming Monday, October 21st, I've actually got a rescheduled episode 31, and my guest is going to be the Love Machine, Gary Strider,
That's a nice name.
and
Love
then yeah, and then Wednesday, October 23rd, I've got episode 41 with a referee based out of West Virginia named Talise Starseeker.
Oh,
Talise,
yeah.
she is actually going to be my first female guest, hopefully first of many, because
Amazing.
I'm definitely excited to have the female side of wrestling represented here more than it has been.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully Talise will be the start of a trend of getting more women on here.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
on Thursday, October 24th, I've got a rescheduled episode 39 with a guy who is a veteran of both TNA and the NWA, the
Mm.
outlandish Zicky Dice.
That motherfucker. I beat his ass for the hardcore championship, which I'm holding right now. See, we were in a triple threat match and he got the upper hand, but he ain't pinned me. He pinned that scum Jerry Swirls. So you know what I did?
Ah,
See, that was a 24/7 rule. So you know what I did? I saw him during intermission selling his bullshit merchandise and I punched him in the face right in front of his girlfriend and pinned him 1, 2, 3 and took the title. And I'm champion to this very day. I actually have the title in my trunk, but if I go out there, there's no telling if I'm coming back. You dig, Matt?
I dig.
And
I
when I
dig.
see that Zicky Icky Lice, I'm gonna show him again. You let him know. You remind him. Money making Che beat you at intermission with the right hand of doom. You dig? It happens though.
Dig.
I think he's talented. I think he's fantastic. He wouldn't have even been in the same square circle with the moneymaker. So he must be good. So, we'll leave it at that. You'll
It
have
is what
fun.
it is.
You'll have fun.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, my man, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute blast.
I had a
Before
good
we
time.
go, I'm going to take a look real quick at the Instagram chat room and see if anybody's saying much. My wife actually says that you're speaking truth and she's enjoying the perspective.
Oh, thank you. The honesty is real here.
Yep, the best policy.
That's the only way to do it, man. That's what I was taught.
So anyway, like I said, thank you for your time. For those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be watching this on replays, thank you for that. If you like what we've got going here, spread the word.
Yeah.
This thing's really taking on a life of its own, and I'm just having a blast being along for the ride.
Oh, it's
Um,
people like you that help get our point across, man. Because
well,
remember, you asked the question, would you rather wrestle or talk? Well, guess what? If you couldn't speak, you couldn't be on any podcast, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, like I said, I'll be back on Monday, the 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern with the Love Machine, Gary Strider. Everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. Love each other, and let's just keep throwing down.
Yes, sir.